After being burned out on Escape from Tarkov for the last year or so, and taking a break from the genre, I started getting that itch, the extraction shooter itch. That's when I stumbled across Witchfire, a brand new take in the extraction shooter genre being entirely PvE in a dark fantasy universe. And I must say, after sinking 21 hours in 3 days, it's pretty good. Kill enemies, get loot, leave. The holy trinity of extraction shooter gameplay. But what's the catch? What makes it stand out from the rest? Bosses. You are not going to get head eyes by having the audacity to breathe on the same map as Sturman, or feeling like you're on the receiving end of a mortar strike by having Glukar and his cronies throwing 20 grenades at your feet. These bosses all have their own attack patterns to learn and have some pretty unique and memorable mechanics to keep them fun and engaging as you attempt them multiple times. You've got the galley YouTube might not like that one. The involuntarily employed galley worker, the widow, the prophet of the damned, Dematcha, and my personal favourite, the Calamity event boss, the Flying Galleon. Full disclaimer, there might be more that I haven't come across yet, both in terms of progress and just early access. If I had to compare the movement of this game to another, it would most likely be Doom 2016. And oddly enough, a little bit of Hunt Showdown. It's just as smooth while having a bit slower pace than Doom, while also defaulting to a lowered crosshair and having positioning matter in a few harder encounters. I personally wasn't a fan of the lowered crosshair, so in the gameplay you'll see it with a centered one that can be adjusted in the options. You have two main weapons, a primary and a secondary, which can be any mix of your standard weapons, as well as one special weapon known as your demonic, which has limited ammo but is often very powerful. To complement this selection, you also have light and a heavy spell, as well as your trinkets consisting of a relic, a ring, and a fetish. I'm not going to go too far into detail with these, as this could be a 20-minute discussion on its own, but you can think of them as a mix between build enablers and supporters depending on the slot. As an example, the Stigma Diabolicum light spell generates assist on the enemy, which becomes an additional weak spot with a damage amplifier, which might make your critical based weapons such as the Nemesis quite juicy.
Yeah, boy.
Progression takes elements from roguelikes and Dark Souls in the fact that you have meta progression with gear and region unlocks, while having a Souls-like leveling system where killing enemies gives you witchfire, souls, which then you can spend on consumables or increase attributes, which in turn increase your character's level. Also similar to Souls-likes, when you die, your witchfire and a few consumables, which I think are limited to chest keys, are left on the ground to be picked up on your return. Your overall goal is usually to increase your Gnosis level, as it is essentially your world level, which impacts the tiers of enemies you encounter, your witchfire income, unlock side areas and maps, as well as the tier of gear which you can research. You also have other mechanics such as rosary beads and prophecies. To briefly touch on the former, rosary beads are essentially your passives which you can find around the world and can be added to your rosary to gain its value. Some have attribute requirements you must meet before you can use them due to the potential power they have, essentially gating you from abusing strong effects early game unless you willingly grind out levels at low income. As for prophecies, well, something I've neglected to mention up until this point is the in-raid or rather in-expedition progression. Around the map you'll see skulls that indicate an event or an enemy camp at a location. Killing all enemies in that area drops a manifestation which you can absorb, which allows you to allocate an arcanum, or skills for the ease of writing this script. These skills are wiped upon leaving the map, so they are essentially your reward for staying in an expedition to become stronger at the cost of dwindling resources if you play poorly. There are different types of skills, ranging from ones that bolster your magic, increasing drops from enemies, weapon skills, etc. What prophecies do is that they allow you to choose what kind of skill appears at what time, as well as includes a unique effect for that line, and the amount of prophecies you can allocate increases with your Gnosis level. These can be incredibly powerful, and taking the risk of clearing an entire map before facing a boss can turn the encounter into a steamroll. One last thing I want to touch on is optimization, and I have nothing but praise. Built on Unreal Engine 4, I have been running this game at 1440p ultra-wide at max graphics at a very consistent 120 to 144 FPS, without DLSS, and without frame generation, on an RTX 4070 Super and a Ryzen 5 9600X. Just look at these specs. It's crazy how you can have such a beautiful and atmospherically immersive game without needing to kill your performance. I won't be the first person to admit that there are corners cut to achieve this. Oftentimes the textures themselves aren't insanely high quality, but to be completely honest, it doesn't really matter. You don't need the ability to stare voraciously at the arse cheeks of a dead boss in 16K to appreciate the world you're playing in. The developers have truly invested effort into the aspects that matter to bring their world to life, and for that, I must commend them. For my first steps into specifically the single player extraction shooter genre, Witchfire has set an extremely high bar from what I should expect. This game is still in early access and is primarily just gameplay, as the story focus mode is slated for a full release, which has been projected for mid-2026, but it has enough content to justify the current price tag in its current state, and I cannot recommend it enough. To be on the safe side, my final rating is going to be about an 8.5 out of 10. The main reason being some of the mechanics aren't entirely clear without sourcing information from a wiki or Reddit, but I feel like if this is addressed in the future, you could easily push above a 9 out of 10 game, and I am eagerly awaiting the full release.